let's get into it. Coach Colin news. Should I call it that? I think I might call it that. Coach Colin Network? I don't know. We'll see. But today, I'm showing you guys the worst case of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, that I have seen in a very long time. But we're not just going to stop there. I'm going to show you that video, but then I'm going to show you some other things. Because here's the thing that causes TDS. It's the media. It's the mainstream media that makes people act the way they act towards Trump. You've seen Robert De Niro. He's an idiot. I don't like him. I never liked him. You see stuff like that. You see Bill Maher just, oh man, he has dementia. Just making things up. You see it all the time. Charles Barkley threatening to punch people in the face if he sees Trump's face on their shirt because he wants to protect black people. But if he sees a black person with his face, he's going to punch him. Just no logic. The mainstream media is what does this to people, right? So I'm going to show you the clip. Then I'm going to show you exactly what this gentleman was missing. So he got really angry, but he got angry because of this, right? There's some police officers in Michigan that were giving Trump their endorsement, but they're not doing it because they're white supremacists, not because they're racist, not because they're misogynistic. It has nothing to do with that. There's actually really good reason that they're endorsing Donald Trump. Here's another clip. This is the president of the Police Officers Association of Michigan, just giving his endorsement right here, but we'll get deeper into it.
I hope that you'll consider with the Congress and the Senate here that we have that you'll support legislation to make a death penalty for killing a police officer while on duty. And I'll leave you with this. We supported you. We endorsed you in 2016. We were the first guys in Michigan. And you sent me a little video, and we still have it. We were proud to do it. We were there in 2020, and I'll tell you, we're here in 2024. And today, on behalf of 12,000 law enforcement people that the Police Officers Association of Michigan represent, we want you to accept our endorsement for President of the United States. Very important. You got it. Thank you for the time. Thank you very much.
Wow. Making sure to whisper to him, you got to win this. You got to win this. They're very gung-ho about having Trump as president. But there's reasons for this. Now let's jump over to the case of TD. So that is what the gentleman saw. He saw that person giving an endorsement. He saw this picture of another police officer shaking hands with Trump. A bunch of them are standing behind him, not to mention also congressmen as well. They're all standing behind Trump. And this guy just went off. Look, this is not even, I'm not catching a mid-clip here, guys. Okay, this is the beginning of the video. How is he already like this at the beginning of the video? All right, take a
Are you kidding me, law enforcement? Are you kidding me? Tonight in Grand Rapids, multiple law enforcement officers stood behind Donald Trump as he spoke. People that are elected officials like sheriffs, others hired to protect and enforce the law for the entire citizenry, not for a political party, explicitly forbidden from being a partisan authoritarian police force standing on stage, entirely unethical, probably illegal, on top of which Donald Trump has been indicted 91 times. He's liable for sexual assault. His entire business was found to be fraudulent. And law enforcement has the fucking gall to stand on stage with him. Enough is enough. Are you kidding me?
Enough is enough. Let me just start with, it is definitely not illegal for a bunch of police officers to stand behind Donald Trump. That is just not a thing. It's not illegal for them to invite him to any events that they have going on. It's definitely not illegal for them to endorse him. It's not illegal for them to show their support. And guess what? It wasn't illegal for them to do that exact same thing back when he first ran for president, which they did. So they're just showing their support again. They're Trumpers. They're Trumpers over there. They are full Trump supporters. This guy is so angry. It's absolutely wild. But again, the mainstream media puts things into people's heads. You notice how he uses the word authoritarian police force. He's viewing it as them standing with Donald Trump is them taking a step towards authoritarianism. It's actually quite the opposite. These are the parts that this gentleman's leaving out. These are the things that he doesn't realize. Here, let's start with this clip here of why. This is the president again. He's going to be speaking a little bit, and then I'm going to bring some cold, hard numbers from another police officer. And you're going to understand why they're supporting Trump and not Biden.
Enforcement family, but I came up as a law enforcement officer because they were important to me. On the east side of Detroit, you needed to have a few friends in the PD. The 48205, this is now the most violent zip code in America, I believe. That's where I was at. But there's no way we can have a president of the United States that allows 3 million people a year or more, I'm sure, to come across to come on our country illegally. We can't allow that to continue. It's those who enter, they do so in the light of day. They do it by pushing aside our National Guard. Then they're handed a gift card, they're handed a telephone or an iPad, transportation to anywhere in the U.S. that they want to go. And then you want to tell these law-abiding people that are here, you have to obey the law. There seems like there's no real reason to do that anymore. And that's made it very hard to be policing because people look to us, the law-abiding people look to us, but they're saying, what about that person? What about that? As you've talked about here today. My mom used to say it takes the wind out of your sails. You just kind of, everything calms down and it's not so good. The felons that we arrest become misdemeanors and then they become no bond and then they become free guys really before we get our car cleaned out at the end of the shift. Why would you expect people to obey the law when millions are rewarded for disobeying it? I don't know how many officers must get injured or killed or worse, the civilians out there that are injured or assaulted or killed and assaulted. We've heard about a couple of them here tonight. I know that we can fill these vacant jobs with good people. I know they're out there. I know we can recruit them, but we need a commander-in-chief that will give them just simple due process. You've talked about some of the things that are important to us, but they just need to know they've got somebody behind them a little bit instead of trying to push them backwards, pushing them forward. I think.
There you go. There you go. These are pretty good reasons. These guys have a bunch of citizens, millions of citizens who are watching illegal residents of, well, I shouldn't say illegal residents, illegal aliens that are coming to their towns, coming to their states, coming to their cities, and they're being rewarded. They literally broke the law to get into the country, and they're being rewarded with debit cards and phones for tracking purposes, of course. That is the reasoning of why they give people phones, but it's also a phone that you can play Candy Crush on and download Instagram and download YouTube and download TikTok and make viral videos like that gentleman did, how he was explaining squatter rights before he got arrested by ICE. So yes, they get phones, but it's for tracking purposes, of course, although it's the same phone that you and I have, only they don't have to pay for it at all. So they get a bunch of things, they get rewarded. And they feel like they have no support, which I think anybody who's seeing clearly can see that police officers over the past 4 years have had no support. In the media, they were demonized. All this talk about defunding the police, any liberal state, government official, Democrat official was definitely on top of trying to defund the police. It was happening everywhere. It was crazy. It was basically just, tying their hands. And you're seeing the effects of it now. So they don't feel supported. They don't feel, and on top of that, when they do their job, which he mentioned, he pretty much mentioned catch and release, because we bring these guys in and he's like, they're out before we even clean out our cars at the end of our shifts. So they're playing this catch and release game. It's just all round bad. And they can see the reason for this. So they're looking at their president, current president, and they're saying there's no support here. There's no support whatsoever. Again, that is what this gentleman here is not seeing at all. He's just not getting that. Again, mainstream media, man. All he saw was this. He saw police officers shaking hands with Trump. He saw Trump getting endorsements. That's it. That's all he saw. And it made him deranged for a short period of time. I'm sure he's probably still screaming. For you to be screaming like this at a phone, you're probably like this most of the day. Now I'm going to hit you with another clip here. There's a gentleman who's giving the cold, hard numbers of what's going on in regards to illegals. Let's go.
As you know, Van Buren County, highly respected, and he's going to say a few words. Thank you, Daniel.
So I'll make this pretty brief. I was asked to hit on how the open borders are affecting us here in southwestern Michigan. Our county is actually on the southwestern part of Michigan, only Berrien's below us. I ran some numbers yesterday in our jail facility. 40% of our inmates in our jail in Van Buren County have out-of-county residency. Out of the 40% that do not live in our county that we're feeding every day, 10% of those have addresses from Mexico or Guatemala. Put that in perspective. We are a rural community. 10% of the folks in our jail are from Mexico or Guatemala. They're not in our jail by coincidence. We didn't just see them walking down the road and saying, you know what, I don't think you belong here. They're in our jail because they committed crimes. If you look at the heinous crimes that they committed, the one that really jumped out at us is all the violent sex crimes. And it's not just against adults. It's against our children as well in our community, and that's appalling. To go even further on that, with the open borders the way they are, when President Trump was in office, our narcotic unit was buying a ball of meth, which is 3.5 ounces of meth, for $300 to $350 for a ball. As of this past week, a ball is $85 because the market's flooded by the tons coming across the open borders and semis. And when I say tons, I mean tons. It used to be a thing of the past, or it is a thing of the past, folks doing making the meth in their own residences. They don't do it anymore because the cartel's bringing it in by the tons. They're not having to make it inside their residences, hence the cheap amount that's going out and the amount that's on the street. It's disturbing. I've got a few bullet points I want to really drive home to you folks. Career law enforcement officers have faced incredible challenges these past 4 years for several reasons. The drastic rise in fentanyl as well coming over the border has touched just about every family in southwestern Michigan. You guys all see it on the news on a regular basis, all the ODs and domestic situations that we handle in law enforcement. We handle roughly 2 overdose deaths a week in our county. Keep in mind, our county is only 76,000 population. So at least twice a week, we're handling those. And those are numbers I ran yesterday. I just didn't make those numbers up. That's disturbing. It's getting in our schools. It's getting in our children's hands. It's very disturbing. It's killing our kids. It's poisoning our communities. It's making the jobs of law enforcement professionals much more difficult. The open southern border is the heart of lawlessness and crime you're witnessing. Make no bones about it. We need leadership at the national level that is willing to solve this crisis. President Trump, without a doubt, is the leader we need to get the job done and get America safe. Thank you.
So again, just thinking that these authoritarian cops are just supporting some dictator, that's just a mainstream media talking point. That makes you think like this. That makes you just go nuts. Look at this guy, ridiculous. But the thing he doesn't realize is this is what's going on in Michigan. He doesn't realize this is happening in Michigan. High-end burglaries tied to Chilean crime ring prompts police task force. These guys are going up in houses, going in real planned. They don't care if there's people there or not, and they're connected to this gang, right? There's also talks of a Venezuelan gang merging with MS-13. MS-13 is an El Salvadorian gang, I believe. Very big presence. It's just a massive gang. Massive gang. Chilean gangs raid wealthy Detroit suburb mansions as chilling surveillance catches them loot $800,000 worth of jewelry and cash. I will say this. Hey, don't have whatever you want in your house. I would never have that amount of cash or jewelry at a house. But then again, the only thing I wear is my wife's hair ties. I take her hair ties, the things she puts in her hair, and I wear them as bracelets. That's the closest thing to jewelry I got. And my wedding rings. That's about it. I'm not a jewelry guy. But this is really happening. Really, really happening. And these are the things that don't come to people's minds. What, I made a video yesterday. Robert De Niro was like, I don't understand why these people would support him. Why they would. I don't get it. Maybe they just like to piss people off. It's like, no, there are some people who are feeling the effects of the things that are going unanswered. Open borders, police having their hands tied. If you live in Chicago and you've been through a few riots, there is a blip of time, and it's still going on here and there. There's a blip of time where there would be 200, 300 kids and adults running around just destroying almost like a city block, flipping cars, smashing cars, this, that. And then the next day, the mayor would come out and just be like, that was just a gathering. It wasn't a riot. It wasn't a riot. Don't call it a riot. It's insensitive to call it a riot. It was just a gathering. When you're seeing that time and time again, and then you're also in Chicago, then all of a sudden they're like, hey, your kid has to do his lessons at school. We have a bunch of migrants. We're clearing out the school and just making that a place where they can stay. When you have a community center and you're from Chicago, aka Chirac, because that's what they call the place, and you only have one community center and you're a single mom, and that community center is the only thing keeping your son away from gangs, and then they say, yeah, we're filling that with migrants too. Or if you're in New York and then all of a sudden they say, for years, they say they don't have any money for you, all these people living in poverty, and then all of a sudden you hear this law, well, not law, but something that they're doing, $53 million gets approved to give migrants debit cards that they can use. What do you think's going to happen? Of course, it's kudos to this police force for deciding to support Trump. They're trying to make the community better. They have their hands tied. You have right now a lot of government officials, but I won't mince my words. You got a president right now who is okay with people saying defund the police, who's saying things like the number one thing we have to worry about is white supremacy. And he's an 80-year-old white guy with gray hair. It's nonsense. These talking points are coming from someone of color in his cabinet who would probably have blue hair if she wasn't working in his cabinet and was just left to her own devices. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So before you decide to get like this, you should really think about what's going on around you, because this is happening for a reason. These guys are giving their endorsements for a reason. They're standing behind Trump for a reason. Just very, very interesting to see somebody go off like this, to just be so angry, so mad. And to call them authoritarian police force. They're actually the opposite of authoritarian. They feel like they have no authority. They can't do anything. You're catching criminals and then they're getting out before you're done your shift. What was the point even? Maybe you wrestled them to the ground. You had a flash of like, oh, I hope I make it home. You don't know what's going to happen. And then before you even get back to the station, they're like, yeah, that guy's gone already. Man, again, you know what? Killer Mike, I've made a video on my main channel, but Killer Mike, he's a rapper, and he was talking about the black community. But I liked what he was saying for everybody. He was like, think about the policies. He's like, stop operating on emotion. Think about the policies that they're going to put in place. And the one thing he said that kind of got him in trouble was, he's like, when I look at Trump, he's like, I see a guy that's going to cut a deal. I see a guy that if you support him, he's going to remember that and he's going to cut you a deal in the sense of doing things that are good for you and your community. And he was telling black people, like, you should go towards someone like that because you need somebody who's going to work with your community. You don't need somebody who is going to act like they should just have your vote, and then when they get it, they do nothing for you. It's crazy. So anyway, that was one of the worst cases of TDS that I've seen in a very long time. Just angry beyond belief. This guy should start a podcast with how passionate he is. Literally sweating over Trump standing with police officers who are tired. I keep catching him in the best positions. Who are tired of being treated like what they do doesn't matter. Completely understandable. Let me know what you think in the comments, though. of course, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those are authoritarian police officers. Maybe you don't back them at all. You know, there's one thing that guy said before I end it, when the president, when he was talking about the death penalty for people who end up shooting or, you know, end up ending a officer's life. I can see why he feels that way, because that police officers are near and dear to him, to the point where he became the president of the association. I don't know how I feel about that. You know, at a snap judgment, I say, yeah, go ahead. But then also I think, what happens if somebody just kills one of us? Does that same thing happen? Then if not, I think, I don't know. I don't want to even playing field. I don't know. Because one thing I know Trump's fighting for is for the police to have immunity. He wants them to have immunity so they can do their job without the fear of, because what happens when an officer does his job? He does it to the full extent. You know, the media just comes down on him. A bunch of people yell on Twitter, and the next thing you know, his uppers, the whole precinct that he works for, they're scared of getting backlash. And the next thing you know, the guy's fired. He's gone. Doesn't have any work. Loses his pension. Like, I don't think that should happen at all. But I don't know about the whole death penalty thing. You let me know what you think about all that in the comment section. Other than that, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.